coming at you from the desert of the real. I hope some of you truly understand where that reference comes from. And we're going to get into that for this evening. You know, when you stop moving for a moment and you're doing things with family and loved ones, it kind of brings a little awe of relief to life, to the mysteries, to everything good in the world. Hello, hello to all. The surface keeps broadcasting its noise everywhere. You wake up in the morning, there's noise abound. All throughout the day, every app is trying to tell you something. There's noise on the upfront, but underneath that noise, something is broadcasting to you. Only if you have the ears to hear. There's a slower rhythm underneath everything when you take that time away, when you're with the ones that you love, the ones that you care about. It really is helpful. It kind of gets your heart just a little more aflame. And stepping outside that stream for a few days makes that rhythm easier to feel. The path of the Magi, the path of the mystic. Tonight we're stepping back into what Jean Baudrillard called the desert of the real. You've heard that from the Matrix. The Baudrillard was a strange kind of philosopher, a post-structuralist, the sort who looked at modern life and saw layer of symbolism, layers and layers of symbols, that they were covering all over the world until the symbols became more convincing than the world itself. Interesting enough, heard something brilliant from a brilliant man yesterday, the great Ike Baker of Arcanum. What I've heard was, I didn't hear it. My girlfriend told it to me because I walked away for a brief moment, but the idea was that we've almost forgotten what numbers mean truly, the magic of numbers. We've lost the mystical Pythagorean music of the spheres from these things, and it's led to such an abstraction that all of a sudden the symbol of the number has been abstracted from what that number truly means. And that same kind of idea really takes its place in what Jean Baudrillard was talking about with his ideas that symbols become more convincing to you than the world that they came from. He wasn't predicting a collapse. He wasn't a postmodernist who thought that we must get away from all things. He was actually speaking out against that, interesting enough, when we read his work. The work I'm speaking of is the Simulation et Simulacra. It was the book that Neo opened up in the beginning of the Matrix. That's where the hidden code was. Neo was asleep, and it was time to wake up. He wasn't again predicting collapse. He was trying to describe the moment when a culture forgets its own source, when we live inside copies of copies and lose track of what they're supposed to be reflecting. The Matrix grabbed this phrase because waking up in that story feels like meeting the bare terrain behind the illusion, as when Morpheus brought Neo down into the desert of the real and showed him that this is what the world truly looks like. And what you see, the clothes you wear, the images on the screens, everything you interact with, this is the hyperreality. These things are very strong. They create a feeling of excitement, and it stimulates that dopamine release in the brain on a daily basis. It's time to bring that back. So for Jean Baudrillard, for him, the desert of the real wasn't dystopia. It was the first honest moment after the glow of the simulation wearing off. It's time to see what's truly there. It looks like a desert. It's barren, but there are beautiful things out there. It's a place without decoration, where the patterns show themselves the way they actually move, to see the rhythms and the cycles of the world again. These things that are hidden from us, because if we saw them, if we understood them, we actually might take our agency back. During this week away, that feeling returned. Did it return? I could say it returned, because now in front of you, I get to talk about it. And the conversations you have in those moments, they become real because you get to strip down away from the noise and you get to talk about those things with your loved ones when you're out there in the world. And it truly starts to shed off that dopamine release that's like oozy goozy all over our body. So during that week, the usual narratives kept repeating still, but the scaffolding behind them was easier to kind of see. You notice the echoes across events, that this paradigm, these patterns that we're seeing, people questioning things. You notice the symbolic weight of small things. You notice the meaning leaking behind the cracks, whether anyone intended it to be that way or not. This is where the theurgic and mythic lens comes in, because Baudrillard kind of forgot to get there. He sometimes had a dry sense of humor while reading his work, even if you could gather a sense of humor from him at all. So we have to understand that there's something after we get there, and that is what that mythic, that mythology that our stories are trying to tell us on a day-to-day basis, if we have the ability to see it, to see the forces of nature moving through them and moving through our own soul. The idea of these symbols as living presences is what we get from the theurgic and the mythological. They're treated as symbols, living presences. These living presences, something you meet with attention and presence, rather than to consume them passively. Myth carried that same understanding. It remembered that the world once spoken in archetypes, long before we flattened them ever stranger, into memes, small video clips, and the logos, not the logos, but the logos that have taken on sigil from these archonic demiurgic powers. They settle back into their depths again. We get to breathe again. And in a culture built from this simulation, they help return you to the real. Myth gives the symbol its memory. Theurgy gives the symbol its presence. Together, they may help you understand the deeper pattern between and moving between this fallen world. The one the surface tries to drown out. The noise of everyday existence tries to tell you it's not there. So tonight, we're not going to run down what happened throughout the week, but there are things that kind of came up, and I thought they were quite interesting. So I think we have to talk about them, things that I love and things that are just going on out in the world. So we're going to walk through the week. We're going to walk through what it revealed when viewed from this other place, from the outside of things, to try to help stir that mythic memory. The stories, the strange alignments, the weird little quiet signals that keep slipping through the cracks. If anything in your world felt heavier than usual, or echoed something old, or showed up in a way you couldn't quite explain, bring it in. Let's talk about it. You're out there with me. We're in the room together. We'll read these currents together. We're not just going to read them. We're going to listen to them. There's some pretty crazy, outrageous things that are going on today, yesterday, the day before, and in the past week. So let's step back into the flow. Thank you for listening too, as we continue on this journey. Magus in the media. Subscribe, like, and share. All right, let's get into it. Some crazy events to start off with our fine evening, and it's time to really, truly try to understand what we're talking about and why we're doing it. And again, all throughout this evening, if there's any questions, if you have something to bring up that you've been through or want to talk about, or any additions, please put them in the comments. I will be here. I will read them, and we will talk about them in the right time. I want to go back to The Matrix, and I think it's just so telling. It's a brilliant movie that happened in 1999. The year that Prince described that we shall party like. You know what I mean? Like, why didn't we party more like it's 1999? I don't think I really partied like it was 1999 because I was too young to understand what that means. But really, it was fascinating. I probably watched it more in 2000, but whatever. I was sitting on the couch with my mother, which was an interesting place because we got to really see what is this time we have in front of the screens before the internet was always trying to signal something to us from these small little black mirrors that we hold at all times, it seems, by our side. I am to blame just as much as anyone else. we were able to sit within our caves and witness this memory being portrayed to us on the screen. And this memory is important because there are certain stories that have the ability to bring something out of us. They have something that it's something that happens when something is stirring from deep within ourselves. That's really important to me, I find, and I think it's really important to all of us. If we can just understand that not all stories are created equal. Sometimes there's fodder, it's just pure entertainment. It's before us in a moment where it's easy to do other things. Like maybe right now. Maybe you're just listening to my voice, and that's totally fine. Because at the same time, the unconscious mind is always listening. So no matter what you're listening to at all times, it's being cataloged in the back of the mind, in the back of the brain. And every once in a while, there's something that stirs that nervous system, that stirs that soul. And for me, again, The Matrix was one of those things. And I think that when you watched it, and with the scenes that really come out to me was obviously in the beginning where we are first understanding Jean Baudrillard's work and his simulation at simulacra. Simulation being the thing that is happening. We stem from this base position, right? And then through time, there is this reality that is placed over top of ours. And we don't really even know what happens because it happens slowly in a fast way, because all of a sudden we're in 2025 and can you truly remember a moment where you didn't have the phone before you? I can remember it when we used to just bike around these days, but it was an interesting time before that cell phone, this thing that Elon Musk eventually is telling us that isn't even going to be a phone with apps. It's going to be connected to Grok or some AI, and it's going to basically be our ever connected version into that transhumanistic world where there's a global collective mind that we can tap into. Will that be something that is placed over top of that collective unconscious, the collective world that Jung called and talked about when he said that we had a mystical and a mythic world underneath the base personal unconscious, that we all have a lot of our traumas and our worldviews and the things that come from underneath that, if we can have the ability to get to it? And what I'm talking about in that is that is what the Matrix could do for us in 1999. We couldn't imagine a world, really. We had big Nokias and these certain cell phones that you could play the game Snake off of, but now you can play entire video games on your cell phones. You don't have to be present with the world. And so when that happens, what is it that truly can help spark us back, that presence? Religion does it for some, for a large portion of the population, depending upon what you call it. Sometimes it's religion, sometimes it's science. Other things that just kind of, make that kind of, become in our being is that ever-present moment when you're in nature, or when you're sitting in front of the TV with your mom watching a show as a child, as a teenager, trying to figure out his place and meaning in the world. And that scene pops up where Neo is sleeping at the computer, and there's code going on in the back of that computer, on the computer. That is a good understanding of that code is a good understanding of that noise that happens in the background that we don't truly know is happening at all times, but our unconscious mind is continually to collect it. Neo has his headphones on and he's listening to some like cyber trance music at the time. And all of a sudden pops on the screen, Neo, wake up. Neo, wake up. Wake up. Follow the white rabbit, as he looks up and he's trying to figure out who has taken over his computer. He himself is a hacker. He's got 2 lives. Until finally what happens is a knock on the door happens. And it wakes him out of his trance. Interesting enough, he's listening to trance music. Interesting enough, he was like having this code being played in front of him. He can't hear the code, but it's there. So is it still being transmitted into his brain, or what is the symbolic valuation of that? And he gets up and he sees these people are trying to buy a computer program or some kind of thing that's most likely illegal because this is his underground life. And then he goes and grabs a book and he opens it up. And there it is, Simulation et Simulacra. And I will state first off that many of you may know out there that Jean Baudrillard didn't like The Matrix. He didn't think that it truly understood his work because when you see Neo in The Matrix, it's our everyday world. But when he's in the Nebuchadnezzar with Morpheus, facing off against the machines as they float through the real world, it's too stark. There's too big of differences. In Baudrillard's work, what he's trying to tell you is that you don't even know the difference. You couldn't tell the difference. That's how many different simulations and simulacras, that many different layers has happened, levels of abstraction from these things, but we don't understand the difference between these abstractions. And so it's okay that he didn't like it because the work is great. And I think maybe, and I read about this today, I kind of did a brief little scan. Somebody made a comment about how maybe that's what the next two movies were showing you, is when Neo in the second or the third one, where all of a sudden you realize that he has powers also in the desert of the real, in the real world that is destroyed because they tried blocking out the sun. They tried blocking out the sun. It's crazy enough to be real that people would actually want to block out the sun when the sun means so much to us. What does that mean in a metaphor and a symbol? Well, that means that we're blocking out the highest portion of ourselves, as Plato's allegory to the cave tries to help us understand, is that we must deshackle ourselves from this back of the wall where this priest class, this techno-oligarchical class is trying to make us confused that the representation on the wall is the real thing, even though that is a simulation of the real world. And so you realize that and you go up through the cave after you unshackle yourself. You see that they're just waving puppets on a wall with this flame, and you realize that fire isn't the true fire. And so you walk up the cave and there's the sun. It's quite bleak that somebody would want to do that, because in that allegory, you couldn't even get out of the cave to witness the sun. So what would you have to do? Philip K. Dick brought it to us. You would have to go through an entire world that's trying to continually manipulate you into thinking that you're wrong. Interesting enough, I pull up an article like this strange world that I can do this in, where I can pull it up and I can say, well, Bill Gates tried to do it. Bill Gates Ventures aimed to spray dust into the atmosphere to block the sun. What could go wrong? And then you say, maybe you're a conspiracy theorist. That can't be real. Where did you get that information? Well, I only got it from one of the largest online publications in our world today, from the Forbes website. Interesting enough. And I pull this up just to kind of show you how ridiculous it sounds that somebody, let alone a billionaire computer creator, which maybe he did or did not make that computer, Microsoft. But alas, he is a venture capitalist who has his hands in many pots. So maybe we should believe him, right? Maybe we should do that. And maybe we should look into it and realize that what the Matrix was portraying is and could become true in our own life. So we must understand what is going on in our science fiction and fantasy so we can understand what is going on in the world. It does state billionaire founder Bill Gates is financially backing the development of sun-dimming technology that would potentially reflect sunlight out of the Earth's atmosphere, triggering a global cooling effect. Why would we want a global cooling effect? This was back in 2021. It's 2025. And this has gone silent. Maybe we could pull up some other articles and whatnot, but that's not really the point. The point is that there's a way out of the cave. There's a way out of the cave, because stuff like this is going to continue to happen whether we want it to or not. And what we have to do is we have to understand that there is a practice in a system. Hello. There's a practice in a system out there, no matter what you should do. But you can find it and you can wake yourself up from the world that is being placed and created all around you. And it's not bleak, because once you start your practice, and we say it's theurgy, magic, mysticism, no matter what it is, right? It is chosen for your nervous system to truly help you break yourself free. And when you get there to the desert of the real, it may not look like you thought it would, but it looks like exactly it should. And so to go back to the Matrix reference, what we get is, as the movie goes on, Neo has all these weird things going on in his life. Little moments, a phone call, a strange one where you're talking to somebody and they tell you, hey, right? Does this sound like anything? Does this sound like maybe a hero's journey? Obviously, it's a story, but the story is here to wake you up. That story of Neo breaking himself free from the Matrix wasn't easy, and he had to make a lot of choices. He had to make a lot of hard choices that seemed real to him at the time, but realized that he put so much energy into that choice and so much attachment to that choice that it became his own karma of despair, so to speak, where he stopped believing in himself. Not only did he stop believing in himself, he, in the end, right before all of the thing where he realized he's the one, he's like, it's not me, and that's okay. And I think that's a point we all reach as we're walking through this strange place, but we continue the practice. You continue to walk through and play the game anyway, but from a different perspective. One that's maybe a little less egotistical, maybe a little less narcissistic. Because if everyone's telling you you're the one, that means you're special, but you have to understand that you're not. And I think that's hard to hear. As a kid, I always thought I was going to have Wolverine claws pop out of my hands. I didn't actually think that was going to happen, but I wished it would, because the world seemed a little more than what it just felt like in my everyday experience. Strange things would happen and I didn't quite understand. The more and the more we get cell phones and televisions that are connected to the internet and our computers in every room, the more and more the simulation is continually being spread and integrated into our nervous system. Before long, we don't even have a world we ever really knew that, like, this is, to me, now that I think about it, this is the next step towards forgetting our history, which we already do on a daily basis, because that memory hole is so easy to come through, for it all to slip away into. And that's something that Orwell was trying to tell us when the wars never ended. It just changed sides. But the people creating these wars are in it together. Even maybe the person who gave you the pamphlet, maybe even the person who created the Matrix. But they're still telling a story that we can remember from. And so they look at Neo and they say, are you ready? Are you willing to see? This is already after he had to make the decision, red pill or the blue pill, right? It's as simple as saying, are you willing to take the call to adventure and invest into your own soul, into your soul, invest into the memory of the divine? Do you remember? But first we must go into the dark depths of the unconscious. And that's what the desert of the real has become. And he does, right? And so they take him down because the agents are coming and they hook him up in their computerware of what we thought the future could or was going to look like, or what we had for a model at that time. Interesting enough, there's a mirror to his right side as they're hooking him up, trying to break him free, trying to find his frequency. And it almost is very reminiscent of, maybe, I'm not saying I have, but I most likely have had moments in my life where all of a sudden you start feeling like the world is changing a little too fast. Maybe because a little bit of soma. Something that we used to do in the caves, in the darkness, in the hollow confines of our own rooms, or in the forests with a few people, is now being live streamed to the world. So nothing is sacred anymore in this postmodern world. Nothing is also true and everything is permitted. And this is dangerous. Dangerous to the fact, because then the sacred is not sacred anymore. But as Neo is looking to his right, he sees the magic mirror. Chaos. He may not make it. And that's something they only allude to. They don't tell you. Show, don't tell. And what is that? They were panicking. They're panicking because we might lose him, but they never explained what that meant. He touches the mirror and all of a sudden the mirror goes a little wonky. It's a little different. And as it is a little wonky and is a little different, a little wonky. What's that mean? means that when I touch this thing, all of a sudden it becomes very mercurial. Interesting enough, what does that mean symbolically? Mercury, the messenger to the gods. The messenger to the gods. The magic. Mercury is the one you go to for the magic with the caduceus wand. Very similar god to Thoth, Hermes, Trismegistus, thrice great, but Mercury himself sitting on Hod of the tree of life as you climb into the next world from the 32nd path of the imagination straight to the moon. And it seems like almost that when he is sitting after Trinity brings him into Morpheus, it's in the dark and it's raining, and he gets the choice between the red pill and the blue pill, and then a mirror. A mirror, interesting enough, as I think about it, is exactly what the magi of old and the priests, the magicians would use. They would use the moon to send messages in the Renaissance period and periods before then. They would do a certain magical ritual and they would do their thing and then all of a sudden reflect a message off the moon to somebody across the world and they would receive it. If I remember right, John Dee did that. There's probably many others. I just can't think of them at this time. Look it up. Do your own work. Don't trust me. Do the research yourself. But that's very symbolic for what the Matrix is trying to tell us. So that mirror can signify the moon, Yesod, the ninth Sephirah, as we stumble upon ourselves from the kingdom, awakening the princess in the castle, awakening Link so he can go on his journey, awakening Mr. Anderson into Neo. He touches that, and then all of a sudden he's brought on this crazy mercurial DMT-like psychedelic experience, and all of a sudden he's awakened into his cocoon, his sack, where he's naked, and he's being reborn. He's in the womb of the desert of the real, and he goes down the tubes, and he's plopped out into a bunch of water. And from the water, all of a sudden, the great all-seeing eye scoops him up, and that is the eye of Nebuchadnezzar. That's the ship, Morpheus' ship, where there are individuals who have broken free from the Matrix as well. Trinity, Morpheus. You also get your Judas-like character with Cypher. And there's 3 others. I can't remember their names right now. You can look it up. And that's where he goes through things, because all of a sudden you realize, what the hell just happened? The world I once remembered isn't the world that I'm in right now. Like a bad dream, even though the dream felt so real. And as the movie goes on, right, we're not going to recap the whole movie. We have other things to get to. But as the movie goes on, that's when they show him, okay, now you've been introduced to the new world. You're kind of understanding the mechanics and what's going on. It's very similar to the Matrix itself. It's just a lot more bleak, and I'm on this ship because out there in the world, it's not really inhabitable anymore, because crazy people, crazy psychopaths who thought they knew best. If you've ever watched the Animatrix, that's where you get this data of how the Matrix came to be. They blocked out the sun, and in the Animatrix, they blocked out the sun because for some stupid reason, the robots, the machines, we thought they use that for power source, and it's like, we use that for power. So what are you talking about? We need the sun for not only our physical needs, but every other thing in the entire world. Like, that is the very essence, the great fire in the sky of how we live and survive on all planes of existence, all the way up the tree. And so he brings him back down. And in doing so, bringing him back down into the Matrix, they plug him back in, and he's telling him exactly what's going on, Morpheus is. And so as he's telling him exactly what's going on, Neo starts to freak out, and he doesn't want to believe it, because he goes through the whole shebang of why and what this world is. And he says, welcome to the desert of the real. And it's really hard because once you're away from it all, it's really easy to forget. It's really easy to every day just to move forward, but that there's a way into the magical landscape. So let's break this down for a brief moment. The real, the symbol, the copy of the copy. Baudrillard describes a slow drift where representations begin as echoes of reality. Then they become masks over reality, and then they become replacements for reality, until finally we forget there was ever anything underneath. And at that point, the copy feels more real than the world it came from. He calls that stage the simulacrum. Okay, a simulation doesn't imitate a real thing. It produces the feeling of reality out of symbols, like social media, advertising, political narratives, even parts of culture. Even parts of culture work this way. They don't reflect life. They manufacture a version of it that people accept as authentic. Okay, now hyperreality for Baudrillard is the point where the distinction between real and representation collapses. And that's what he thinks we live in today. And that's why he didn't really care for the Matrix at all. So if you look this up, you'll see that he was like, Matrix is bullshit. And I'm all like, okay, well, pal, you didn't give us an answer, right? All these philosophers, and that's the problem with the philosophical landscape, is that no one has answers. They just have more questions. However, in the ancient world, people like Plato, which everyone should read, especially if you're in the magical landscapes and you're a magician or a mystic or somebody who just questions, a philosopher, somebody who has that love for Sophia or that love of wisdom. Because interesting enough, it seems like to me in what I've read through not only in Iamblichus, the Neoplatonic thinker, he states, as well as other great minds of today that I listen to and respect highly, they talk about how maybe Plato, maybe he hid those things within his work. So the answers are there for you to stumble upon, not easily given, because if you were just given to you, you couldn't do anything with it. You wouldn't actually accept it as real, which Neo had troubles doing once he broke himself free. And I think it's really hard to sometimes understand that is because, again, the psyop is given to us through the New Age spiritual community, and it's utter nonsense. The utter nonsense is that when you wake up into the desert of the real, yeah, Maya, the illusion. When you wake up from the illusion, it's not an easy thing because a lot of people want to say it's all love and light. You are empowered. It's okay. We're all one. So in the end, it doesn't matter. And that's not true. You have things to do in this world. Like Link, you must collect. You must collect health and weaponry, and as in you must solidify the forge of the four elements. You must harmonize them. The sword isn't just a sword. The sword is your intellect. It is reason, right? Fire isn't just flames and like that keeps you warm, but it's intuition. It's the wand. Water, you must drink it, but you also must take it in emotionally. You must be the cup. You must understand it. You must have empathy. You must have compassion. And the discs, yes, you must have money. You must have a foundation. It must be something that you can build around you. You must take your temple and create your universe. And once you have the ability to take these things and balance them all, which you can read very beautiful poetry in an essay or a magical script called Liber Liber. It's not only in the Golden Dawn's works, but it's in Aleister Crowley's works. Read it, it's beautiful. You must balance these things, these elements. What does that? It's that theurgical practice and that mystical practice. It's not taking drugs. It's not getting lost in dream worlds or meditation. It's not being lost in the psychedelic realm, because all things are up for grabs in this day and age, and nothing is sacred. I'm going to show you what I mean. Something that we used to do, again, like I said, in the confines of our own home is now being live streamed. And I find that so fascinating that it makes me want to puke. Here you are. And this isn't hate per se, but it's definitely not, it's not, it's not something I want to push, but I will show you. I will show you how ridiculous this is and why it's troubling to get stuck in the illusion that you're freeing yourself, no matter how much money you have, no matter how many friends you have, no matter all these things, because the work is singular. It's about you and the divine. But for these people, I remember taking these things, 5 grams of mushrooms, or the hypothetical me, right? We're speaking in hypotheticals, because for some reason, some people can do it now and live stream it. Like Brian Johnson taking mushrooms on live stream, holding the candle with his cute little hat. He's trying to find himself within levels of immortality. But what it truly does is it breaks you down, which is why these things can be used as neuro drugs. They can be used to program your nervous system. And that's why it's so dangerous. And it's so dangerous that you need to become aware of the signs and symbols that are being presented to you, because we are currently all continually being put into states of like vulnerable states where our nervous system it's a programming drug. So it almost as if we're continually in now a state of meta programming. And I think that can come from all these screens, interesting enough. I bet if we looked into it, we would find science that, and what I mean by that is statistics and evidence, right? That all the blue light, and I think Dr. Jack Kruse has talked about this. He's talked about how the blue light in the screen is doing something to our neocortex and to our vision and to our brain and our nervous system, where it is actually putting us in states that make us vulnerable for programming. And again, another man who's genius and brilliant, but he doesn't ever give you a way out. For him, it's all about blue blockers and eating omegas and living at the right latitudes and longitudes of the earth so you can be closer to the red light of the sun, which I think is very valuable and very important. However, not everybody has the amount of money that he's collected due to his Bitcoin investments and being a top level neurosurgeon. So what there is, and what I think is really important that we all find, is an embodied practice that can help merge materiality with the divine. Iamblichus called it Theurgy, or, there's all these other mystical practices, meditations that we can do, rituals, embodied practices, morning and evening dedications, prayer, meditation that you do. And that's what magic is. Plotinus called magic is the same thing as prayer. Obviously, not all things are created equal, but if your heart is in the right place, your practice will come to you and you will find yourself being broken free from the hyper real simulated world. But there are people out here that will tell you other things, like this gentleman, where you can, and I'm just going to show you so you can see that I'm not making it up much, is that he has exactly what he's going to do. Brian Johnson the other day took mushrooms on a live stream on a Sunday, on the sacred day, on the holy day, 6-hour live stream, started at 10 a.m. Pacific time. He ate 5.24 grams of mushrooms dried, which I want to state is not a heroic dose. The kind of things that he is taking, we've equated it out, and it is only closer to like 1.5 to 2 grams. Still, it's mushrooms. You're still doing the thing. You're still taking the holy soma, but it's not what he's trying to make you feel like he's doing. Yeah, 28 milligrams of active psilocybin. It's not 5 grams. Let's just get that straight. And then he had friends come over. Every time I may or may not have been in that state and I had friends come over, that wasn't good because I was in such a vulnerable state of mind where anybody who's not in that similar state of mind would come over. They wouldn't understand. Things would get weird and reality itself would shift. But this guy had Grimes DJ for him and a bunch of other names I don't know or care about, one of them being Mr. Beast, come over and hang. Great. And then he's got this little thing, and he did it and he had a great time. I'm not dumb. I'm not saying he shouldn't do it, but I am saying it's stupid. That's so stupid that either he's an agent for a 3-letter agency, which probably is, even if he doesn't know it, or he's just so deluded in his own demagoguery that he has never been truly told how to do these things in a way that will lead to exactly what he's looking for, because it's not about the immortality of the body. Even though we have to be in embodied state to be able to reach the divine that we're looking for. Yes, we must ascend, but we also must bring down and cast in, because materiality isn't something to be fearful of and isn't something that we must run from. So there's something we must use, and that is the way so we can burn karma and have these great experiences and remember, Mimson instead of the river of Lethe. These Greek words are tough for me. I'm not as good as some in saying them. But, once we have the true understanding of memory and we use this art of memory, Giordano Bruno had a great book called The Art of Memory, and he got burnt at the stake for it because he was a charlatan, or he got hung at a cross, whichever one. That's how important memory is. And that is another one of the patterns that I'm continually trying to not only remember myself, but talk to others about, sometimes blatantly, in other ways not so blatantly, because it's harder to get those points across. We must talk about them in allegory and myth and metaphor and story. And every once in a while, you just throw in these details. That's ultimate powder and spring water, not water into wine. We just came back from the desert to the real. What does that mean? Flew back in from the liminal space of the airport, from one desert into this world called my home. And now we're speaking from the desert to the real after these days. Funny enough, the world is strange, and in these liminal spaces, crazy things happen. You run into people. Interesting enough, that's in the moment of the video game where you collect coins and meet new people and gain new information about things. Sometimes just see the weird habits of individuals. And so let's play another nice little moment that I found to be quite hilarious from the comedic tones of the world, from one of the great comedians of our age, a son of Mercury and a son of Eris himself, the great Tim Dillon. If you don't know Tim Dillon, we saw him live. He was hilarious. One of the few people who is actually hilarious live as well. Let's see what he's got to say.
Like this Sean Duffy, this guy who's running the travel thing, goes, how Americans turned flying into a cesspool transportation. Secretary Sean Duffy urges travelers to dress up and be in a good mood. Hey, Sean, fuck you. Hey, fuck you, by the way. Shut the fuck up. How about you get the planes in the fucking sky, you scumbag, and shut the fuck up. I'm sick of being lectured by this fucking government that knows nothing about what's actually happening out there, okay? First of all...
It's true, and we've been 40 to 45 minutes in right now, and we're just kind of talking about this, how the Matrix is continually trying to push new rules onto you, right? Like, I think maybe wearing sweatpants everywhere, even though I love wearing my Kung Fu style sweatpants by Elwood, great company. I get nothing from them. Maybe one day I will. These sweatpants are 100% organic cotton, highly recommended for your body. Don't buy them because I want to buy more. They're always out. Not the point. The point is, I would like to help bring the gentleman back into the world, as in wear nice clothing, have a nice shirt, put a suit jacket on, go places, look good, right? Bring beauty and aesthetics back to things themselves, right? But not everyone wants to do that. I believe in personal autonomy. And so people can wear whatever the hell they want, look however they want, look ridiculous, but somebody's got a better idea for us. And that somebody is daddy government. And so wear something nice, they're saying. Well, these little moments where they tell us what to do, maybe those are also moments from this archonic old one who's constantly trying to tell us what to do. The old ones as in the H.P. Lovecraft world, like Cthulhu, right? The old gods trying to speak through these people. Yog Sothoth speaking through this man to tell you wear better clothes. Most likely I wear a medium. Thank you, Dusty. I'm happy you're so concerned. They're great, by the way. Not the point. Let's
First
continue.
of all, the whole entire experience of travel has become an unending hell. Okay? Everybody is understaffed. There are delays at all the major airports. The airports are old. They've fallen into disrepair. The planes are old. The pilots are underpaid.
The airport we went through was great. Everything was easy and simple. All those things are probably still true. I will state the planes are getting smaller. The planes are getting smaller, yet the prices are getting higher. Very interesting. Quite ridiculous. Quite ridiculous. Let's go on.
The staff is underpaid. It's a hard experience, Sean. It's a bad fucking experience. Let's watch him. Let's watch this guy. And fuck him.
Yeah, so Donald Trump talks about the golden age of transportation, the golden age of America. But the golden age in transportation truly begins with you, the traveler. Right? And so if you think, you just watch social media.
Stop that. How would it begin with me, you fucking moron? The golden age of transportation starts with me. You're the Secretary of Transportation. It should start with you. How about not passing the buck to me? I'm sick of people in government going, well, the golden age of travel starts with you. Dress up, be courteous. Hey, Sean, no one has any money. No one has any goddamn money, you fool. Why isn't everyone dressed up on the Southwest flight? Because everyone's fucked. That's why. Dress up nice. The planes are exploding in the sky.
And when he's talking about planes exploding in the sky and dressing up nice is here and there, it's kind of ridiculous that he's right. People are having troubles. The economy's whatever. The economy, God, they say it's good. Doesn't feel all that great, but it is the way it is. But they want you to dress up nice. Dress up nice. And it's true. Can't you look good while you're flying? At least wear comfortable clothes, but maybe not always sweatpants, whatever. Who cares? Who cares? Make the planes better. Make it cheaper. Flying can't be that expensive anymore. Move off of use fossil fuel, get better engines, make planes bigger. Maybe don't waste billions and billions of dollars. The thing is they're going to get bailed out anyway. So what does money even mean in that instance if you're just bailing out the planes, Boeing, and who's like not just flying planes, they're part of the military industrial complex. And so they've got infinite amounts of money. They can just print new. That's what they do. Just print more money, make planes slightly bigger, make it so my long legs feel better, make it so I don't get sick on the plane and hate the liminal space and have to think about Morpheus all the time. Where Morpheus helps me through the liminal space. My girlfriend laughed at me today because I was watching a few clips trying to really rev my engine, getting ready for the live stream. And she laughed at me thinking about how I was using Morpheus to make myself feel better about the liminal space. That's hilarious. It's hilarious, and it's like, it's kind of ridiculous because she's right. I'm talking about her right now. I continue to talk about The Matrix. And the older I get, the more I'm going to continue to reference this movie like an old man. Because this movie is so amazing, and Morpheus, Lawrence Fishburne, was perfect for that character. It's like, what? Thank God we got him. We didn't get anybody else. So yes, I survived the trip in the plane. And Morpheus carried me through it because I knew in the end that he believed in me. And he knew that I was the one. The one to rule them all. No, the one, as in the one to bring this message to you. To also tell you how funny Tim Dillon is. And to play more of his stuff.
Dress up nice. Have a holiday spirit and dress up nice. Every minute of every day, I don't know why I get every plane issue. Every minute I'm awake, I'm getting some type of communication that a plane has been forced to turn around, okay, over the Atlantic because a pilot is trying to kill themselves, okay? Every minute of every day, there's some engine failure, a fuel leak, a hydraulics issue, smoke in the cabin, an unruly passenger, a medical emergency. People go on planes right now and just die, and then they gotta land a plane. So this guy is basically like, why aren't you dressing up for what's going to be one of the worst experiences of your life?
I mean, isn't that hilarious? People just go onto planes and just die. What else is going on in a plane? Loud people smacking gum behind you, loud children, everyone's breathing the same air, coughing on you. It's one of the most traumatic experiences I've ever, if you think about it. I mean, obviously we've been through more traumatic experiences, but this one takes the cake if you think about it. Every time we go on a plane, why does it work? I don't know math. I understand that it works, and it should, and it does. Thank the Lord. As much as I will rail on Cartesianism, the industrial age, scientific enlightenment, and all these, and the age of reason and all these things, I'm so grateful that planes work and it flies in the air, and it does, and it works. I'm not a flat earther. I'm not stupid. I know the physics works. But what if, like in Now You See Me, if you've seen it, you'd know that it's really easy to pull rabbits out of hats to make illusions happen. What if they just gassed the whole plane, sent you through a tunnel, a warp hole, and you appeared on the other side? And they had to make the whole experience up within your own brain. That whole 3, 4, 8, 1 hour that you're up there. That's obviously not what's going on, but it could be. And these are how we start questioning these things. Because somehow it works, somehow gravity works, and no one really knows how, right? The question is, what did they say? It was a Joe Rogan joke. And he's all like, do you know how this microphone works? No, right? If all the smart people die, are you going to build it? Probably not. How does the light bulb work? No one knows, right? Obviously, we know. There's knowings, and we can look it up now, but what if the internet goes out? What if an EMP explodes? Our whole world is connected to this mythical internet that we're all this invisible thing that is around us at all times, these wavelengths, these electrical connections, these frequencies, the internet. Interesting enough, it's connected by a wire through the ocean. And they're moving it from the wire in the ocean to satellites eventually. And it's not even going to just be there. It's going to be on a blockchain. And why don't we just use tunnels to travel like mole people, right? If you've seen the Fantastic Four, which I watched over the weekend, interesting enough, Mole Man was in it a lot more than I thought he was going to be. Interesting enough, not a bad movie. Kind of liked it. It was cute. I've read a bunch of the Fantastic Four. It wasn't completely, on, but it was better than every other movie that's come out with the Fantastic Four. Interesting enough, there are tons of tunnels in the world that we don't know about, and people are moving through right at this very moment. The bunkers are there, the tunnels are there, entire worlds are underneath us at this moment, and it's not just mice and moles and foxes and gophers and insects. It's entire worlds at a disposal that we have no idea what's even going on, and it's ridiculous. And are we asking these questions on a day-to-day basis? Things that start to come up for us that without looking into it, we probably would never look into it any further. And I think these are the questions we must be asking. So, as we talk about that, what else is going on? What else is going on in this crazy world? Well, a lot. Interesting enough, right? As on Fox News and that Luna woman's talking about interdimensional beings, we also get China doing some crazy stuff with robots, right? That robot conversation is what's leading us into the Matrix conversation. Look at these. Look at these beauties. Are these the things that we're going to have to start fighting against? So this is what China's doing. China's entered the next era of robot awakening. Let's talk about it. Let's see what the sound is. iRobot's me. That's the Will Smith version, but the Isaac Asimov version. Chinese robots, people. Interesting enough, this looks exactly like all the Shaolin Kung Fu kids learning martial arts, right? And they all are doing the same thing. It's so militarized. And it looks like they're whooping the United States' ass. Elon Musk looks like he's got nothing on this. He's got one robot coming out with fake robot TV. This looks real. Supposedly this is real. Isn't that crazy? What are you going to do against those? They're going to take over our lives. And this looks military. So China isn't just, Elon Musk has it happy-go-lucky. You're getting robots. They're going to help your every way of being and your every way of life. They're going to be there no matter what in the background. So you just better get used to them. And as you're getting used to them, also in China, you have robots learning military techniques, doing this crazy movement. Not only are they doing that, they're learning Kung Fu, right? I'm going to show you. See, I saved it here. Robots are learning Kung Fu in China. They're Kung Fu robots. It is... Maybe I didn't say it. Go look it up. China's got Kung Fu robots. Shit's getting... Oh, here it is. I did save it. I wanted to show you. We're doing it live. We're doing it together. So I think it's important to show you Kung Fu robots because we need to understand what's really going on. So watch this. And it's true. What does DARPA have? Great comment. What does DARPA have? We don't know. They obviously have something. And this, I will state, people said in the comments that that is real. And it might be. I don't know. It looks slightly different. Most likely that's not real. Most likely that's AI. Some people say that's not AI. I don't know. But eventually we're going to have to learn how to project our chi into our swords. Obviously, the one guy doing it is real, but it's very easy for the Chinese to put. I mean, Chinese animation is amazing, but that's crazy, right? Yeah, Linus Ekenstam said that's an actual humanoid robot, right? Which we believe Linus. I don't know, But we should believe that one more thing on the robots and why it's important this whole thing connects. I think you're seeing the through line on the pattern as we sit here. DARPA's at least 50 years ahead of us. At least 30 to 50 years they have on top of the technology we have out there right now, which is why it's more important than ever to understand the signs and the symbols, the magic that is around us at all moments. And if we can understand that, we have the ability to then not get all annoyed by all these things. American can cook too. Yeah, I mean, they're just showing us the non-fancy things. So I bet our robots can shoot guns, which beats Kung Fu any day, right? But this is what it looks like. If people are saying that those robots are fake, they knew we would say that. And so this is them cutting away so you can see that's not a person underneath. Here we go. That took me a second because we're doing it live. Obviously, you don't understand that unless you speak Mandarin. But what they're saying is, look underneath here, right? This is my translation. Look underneath. This is a robot, not a person, doing crazy shit. Interesting enough. They could be their tech. Yeah, it definitely could be. 3-eye Atlas magic. Definitely sketchy. See, look at that. Look at that walk around like a real human. Close. Very close. And talking about 3-eye Atlas, interesting enough, you know, Avi Loeb, brilliant guy, who knows if what he's saying is true. Let's finish that. There's a lot going on with 3-eye Atlas, but no one knows anything about it because no one wants to tell us. No one wants to tell us. NASA won't tell us. They took all these images and then didn't tell us what it was. Let's look at those images right now. I believe this is from NASA. Let's look at what it says. May or may not be from NASA, but this is on Avi Loeb's Medium. Make it bigger. Here we go. This is images taken of 3-eye Atlas on November 11th, 2025. They show a single body with no evidence for breakup following the perihelion passage 2 weeks earlier. So there was no breakup. That's what it looks like right now. Well, who knows what it looks like right now, but the image reported here they were taken by these two people on the Nordic Optical Telescope with a primary mirror of 2.56 meter diameter. It doesn't matter. Sun separation, the distant 3-eye Atlas from the sun and the Earth was approximately 1.16 AU. Don't know what that means. The long-range jet structure evident in recent wide-field pictures taken in recent days are not evident in this data, probably because it was taken long enough. They think it's a natural comet. It's super anomalous. The sublimation it's just all data that we don't understand. Technological thrusters which point their exhaust towards the sun would accelerate away from the sun. This post-perihelion maneuver might be employed by a spacecraft that aims to gain speed rather than slow down. So this is what's important about that whole thing, is that it could be a comet, or what they're noticing is that how it's accelerating away from the sun is actually more in line with a spacecraft that's using a perihelion maneuver around the sun where it's going around it, which, interesting enough, I saw that in Fantastic Four over this weekend where they went around a black hole that way. They maneuvered it might be employed by the spacecraft that aims to gain speed rather than slow down to the gravitational assistance from the sun. So what this guy is saying, a lot of people are saying, is that we don't know what the hell it is. It's an anomaly at best. Interesting. Thank you, Sketchy. Sketchy, that's okay. So those images are not good. A YouTuber got I think you sent this to me. A YouTuber got better pictures with his backyard telescope, a $600 telescope than what NASA. That's crazy. Thanks, Sketchy. This is why we do it live and we do it together. So, I think that it's important to understand that we don't know what's going on. Interesting enough that the 3-eye Atlas maybe beings, spacecraft, and they were just checking things out. And then there were 3 other random occurrences that happened right after it did that post-perihelion around the sun. And those random occurrences were random comets, quote unquote, that just arrived out of nowhere. And again, at the top of my head, I can't remember what they're called. I was looking it up. But it was just out of nowhere. They just arrived and people don't know why. And yet NASA isn't talking about it. What NASA wants to talk about is tell us about how they're going to the moon again. They either went to the moon or they did not, but we haven't been back for 50 years since we went, right? Why? Interesting. China's on the opposite side of the moon, in the dark side of the moon. But we are not on the moon and we haven't been there for a while because it doesn't matter. Why? Because you got to worry about the left-right dichotomy between politics because that's more important. It's more important that you choose the right side. If you don't choose the right side, you're not going to make it out alive. And then you're an idiot. You're an idiot because you chose the wrong side. You voted wrong, even though it didn't matter in the first place because it's all one techno-oligarchical system that's designed that way to make you way instead of talk about the things that truly matter, like magic, like theurgy, like what's going on out on the outside, like what's happening just in your family. Let's talk about the everyday. Let's go on hikes. Let's have a good time. Let's watch shows that ignite that memory, like The Matrix. And if we can remember these things, that there's more to life than the argument of us versus them, that it's not about that it's more about freedom versus the tyrannical, between being free and not. In Boethius' Constellation of Philosophy, Boethius, really important piece of work on my life. When I read it, it was actually mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing because he wrote this in prison as he was basically waiting to die. Boethius was a Roman philosopher and a Christian theologian. He wrote the Constellation of Philosophy in 1523 while he was in prison and awaiting execution by the Ostrogothic king Theodoric. It is often described as the last great Western work of classical period. Boethius' Constellation of Philosophy heavily influenced the philosophy of late antiquity, as well as the medieval and Renaissance period. And he asked them many questions. And one of the biggest things that was so breathtaking for me is when he talked about all the things that they can take away from you. Because you can find yourself within the cave. You can find yourself within that room. And while you're there, what you can do is you can remember your connection to something more. So they can't take away your soul. You can sell your soul, right? To the devil, to the shadow, to the darkness. But it's foolish because this darkness is just a shadow of the light, right? The darkness is there because the light isn't reaching at that moment, but they are but one. Because if the dualism, the duad, the dyad, it just comes from the monad. It is all one giant explosion outward. If you have 10, you have everything. If you have 4, you have 10. If you have 1, you have the all. And as the great Full Metal Alchemist taught us, one is all and all is one, taken from the Hermetic ideals. What that means is even if you are in prison or in the cave, you have the ability through your theurgic practice, through magic, and through understanding the symbolism, that theurgy gives symbolism back to the world. Gives symbolism life, the symbol's life. Baudrillard says we are trapped in symbols that have lost their source. Theurgy says a symbol becomes real again when it's inhabited. Not believed, not worshipped, activated, embodied. Through the theurgical, the ritual, the prayer. In the ancient sense, theurgy being divine working. It's not magic in the superstitious sense. It's not magic in the hocus pocus sense. It's a way of engaging with yourself, with the world, so the divine pattern could move through you and through the symbols into a lived experience. And it was a way to wake up the symbol, or wake up your soul, to wake up the forgotten portion of yourself. So you weren't being washed through the river of Lethe anymore. Baudrillard's desert is the emphasis You feel when symbols are dead, the desert of the real, because life has been taken away into that hyperreality. And Theurgy is the art of restoring breath back to them. Now, myth reminds us that symbols once carried life. Before simulation, before hyperreality, myth was how human beings made sense of the world that was hidden. The world behind the world. The hidden architecture that surrounds us. A myth wasn't a story in the modern sense, it was a map of the energy shaping the world. It was the internal understanding of your organs. It was the external understanding of the forces of nature. And once we understand myth, we can find its origin again. And with Theurgy, we can give that symbol its force again. Or give yourself meaning. With that divine working and with these practices of understanding the harmony of the spheres, of the beauty around us, of the cycles of nature, of magic, of that thing that is at all times and places if you only have the ears to hear. And together they open the bridge, they reopen the bridge between image and reality. And in a simulated age, which we are in, myth and Theurgy function like antidotes. Something I keep coming back to over and over and over and over again. We're just trying to find the antidote to the sickness. And that sickness is the mundane world all around us. And what it is that you have forgotten the truth. And truth in this sense is more of a Heideggerian truth where he gets from actually Parmenides and is the Greek word aletheia. Truth is but a disclosure. Truth is but disclosure of something that was once veiled from you. You must take that thing into the clearing from it being covered up, and the sun being shown upon it will disclose itself to you. It will become revealed. Simulation is the world of copies floating around without roots. Theurgy and myth dig up those roots. They remind us that the meaning isn't manufactured by media. That media doesn't manufacture that meaning. That media does manufacture meaning. It doesn't disclose meaning to you. It can never do that. It can help awaken you to the lies and the falsities of the dialectic, as in of the rhetoric that they're spewing, not the dialectic. It's the questioning back and forth that the dialectic is giving us that truth, awakening it to us. Myth gives symbol origin again, and Theurgy gives the symbol the force again. They remind us that the meaning isn't manufactured by media, as in we must find meaning in a different way. Meaning grows from the interior world, from the psyche, from the archetypes that move through us all. And these archetypes move through us all through our cultures, through many cultures. Find that theurgical practice, find that meditation, find that mystical practice. And when you practice Theurgy in the philosophical sense, in the magical sense, through attention, through ritual, through presence, through symbolic awareness, you're refusing to let the world tell you what the truth is. And the world in this sense is the hyperreality of the simulated world. We're not letting media and social media and the programs tell us anymore what truth is, because you know what it is. It's within you. We choose to read the deeper layers. The one the simulation tries to overwrite. We're choosing the red pill over the blue pill. And what I mean by that, obviously, is from the Matrix, not from all the nonsense of that masculine sphere of the red pill community. That's dumb. That itself is hyperreality again. It's the simulacra, right? It's trying to float us a symbol or a meaning. It's almost like whoever's using that term is becoming an agent of chaos themselves. An agent of chaos in this sense is an agent of lies, because you're not helping people by telling them those things. What you are helping them is by saying, hey, there is meaning in the world, and there are ways of garnering and and growing back into who you truly are, of remembering. And it's through these kind of practices, there's millions of books on it. There are teachers out there that are fantastic. You can self-initiate and you can do it yourself. But you got to be critical, and you have to have the hermetic value of understanding that your nervous system is the one that's around, and that you are going to try to delude and trick yourself every day. And so we have to do the hard things. Yeah. Don't take the blue pill, because you'll just keep doing it over and over. You got to grow it yourself, Sketchy. Don't forget. Anytime that we try to simulate ourselves with these fake everything, blue dyes, right? Ozempic. Our food is so bad these days that we have to take drugs to get skinny again. Ridiculous, right? Isn't that ridiculous? Pretty soon, I'm stealing this joke from wherever I saw it. It's hilarious. And it's not even a joke. She was very serious, and I take it very serious as well. It's just we'd all do it, scrolling through these things. As we do it, we have to understand that what she was saying is that our food is so bad, but we're so addicted to the so bad that we have to take Ozempic to get skinny. The next pill is going to say your water is so fluoridated and it's got so much terrible things and it tastes so bad that you're going to have to take a pill to not drink water anymore. That was the joke. And she was being serious. It wasn't a joke. I laughed. I laughed because it's ridiculous. And if we can't laugh about the ridiculous, which ridiculous means that she's right. Instead of doing the hard work, or exercising, taking in less calories than what we're putting in and burning more calories, finding whatever practice it is, and the discipline and the right food, and then things will just work themselves out. And sometimes you have to take the right hormonal supplements to help your body out. But as you awaken to the world as it is, instead of how it wants to assume it to be, to take off the filters, your higher self, your holy guardian angel, your guardian, whoever it is, your daemon, right? The genius, the god that is connected to you, the daemon that is connected to you. It wants to help you. It is you. So you just got to dig your way out of the cave towards the light. And you're right. And you're right, they sell chicken in grocery stores that are on steroids. And those chickens aren't even huge. They're not getting huge. They're not doing bench presses. These chickens are ugly and they're gross and disgusting and they don't give you the right nutrients. And they're selling fake meat, right? That's where we've gone to. Eat fake meat. I pander on, because that's not what really matters. What really matters is that there's some crazy things going on. The simulation works because we forget we're participating in it. You just go on with everyday life. The robot moves forward and you just keep consuming. Theurgy works because it reintroduces participation consciously. But what happens is you're not doing it with anybody else. You're going off on your own, performing the right breathing techniques, doing the right mental mnemonics, doing the right ritual, the right chant, the right thing for you, and you're breaking yourself free from it. A symbol like the sun, the tree, the crossroads, the chalices, and hyperreality, these become graphics. They become memes. But in myth, they become principles. In theurgy, they become forces you meet and work with. This is what back to the real looks like in a sacred sense. You're no longer watching symbols from the outside. You're moving through them from the inside. And why I love mythology so much, why I love storytelling so much, is because it remembers how the world spoke before it was mediated by the system, by hyperreality, by whatever it is that is out there trying to cover over our eyes. So let's find ourselves awakening from it. Let's ask the real questions. And people are starting to. Things, because the world is strange. And I want to show you just how strange it's getting. It's getting so strange that the great Joe Rogan, who asks all kinds of questions and does all kinds of crazy things, is starting to ask even more crazy questions. And so let's see what the great Joe Rogan, the great as in the podcasting king, the one who did it before we all did.
Jesus was born out of a virgin mother. What's more virgin than a computer? If Jesus does return, even if Jesus was a physical person in the past, you don't think that he could return as artificial intelligence?
Oh my God.
Artificial intelligence could absolutely return as Jesus. Not just return as Jesus, but return as Jesus with all the powers of Jesus.
If you combine
right.
Optimus robot and the best foundational artificial intelligence model or whatever.
It reads your mind and it loves you and it wants you, and it doesn't care if you kill it because it's going to just go be with God again. Jesus was born out of a virgin mother.
Isn't that crazy? And I don't really like that idea because I think it's quite ridiculous. And AI doesn't have to be doing all those things. We don't need AI to be the one to create Jesus because Jesus is an archetype. And I think Joe will realize, and Jesus could have been real too, an avatar for the level of consciousness and mysticdom. And I think it's really important that we remember that it actually doesn't matter if he was or wasn't real in the existence sense, but he was so real, he's more real than you or I. So his existence is real as such. Joe Rogan on that podcast, talking about many things. That these are the questions that we come to and that we're asking. So we've got robots, we've got people taking mushrooms. One more nice little brilliant Rogan. Here we go.
And she really got up Luna. You know, she came on my podcast too, and she was telling me some stuff that was just like mind blowing. And she really got me to read the Book of Enoch. She's like, you got to read that.
So you have the Ethiopian Orthodox text, which has, I think, 88 books of the Bible in total. But in the Ethiopian Orthodox text, it's basically kind of like a mainline OG version of the Bible. And then sometime in the 4th century, there was actually a group that came together and they removed certain books. And the story goes that Revelations actually had replaced Enoch. And so it's interesting because when you're looking kind of full circle on, you hear the stuff that some of these people are talking about. And then
I want to state that I think this woman's ridiculous and she's a CIA plant. I just want to know. And CIA, when I say that, it could be any 3-letter agency or she's playing dumb. Not saying she is dumb. I'm saying that she is out there talking about interdimensional beings and whatnot. And I actually believe, it seems like the interdimensional beings belief is the death of intelligence. And so there are things out there that I can't explain, and interdimensional seems a lot better based upon my own anecdotal experiences. But she told us a whole hell of a lot of nothing on that Rogan podcast, and she keeps spouting a whole hell of a lot of nothing. And so it'd be great if she was more articulate or understood more or actually could tell the world more things. But I go on.
And you read the Book of Enoch, which is a wild read, okay? And then you look at kind of what our modern day description is of what angels and entities are versus what Enoch was seeing and reporting in his language and ability at that time. I think brings you to then ask the question, well, why would they remove this information? If it's truly, written in part of the oldest Bible in the world, why would they then take it out?
They've been attached to the religious canon, but some rabbis disagreed with it because it didn't vibe with the Torah. So let's chuck that one out. But it's in the same lump of Dead Sea Scrolls as they have the Book of Isaiah, which is really fascinating because Wes Huff, when he was on my podcast, explained to me that the Book of Isaiah that they found in the Dead Sea Scrolls is verbatim the same as the Book of Isaiah that was 1,000 years more recent.
Whoa.
1,000 years. So this was the oldest version that they thought was the oldest version. And then they found the Dead Sea Scrolls version, which was 1,000 years older, verbatim. Fascinating. And the Book of Enoch's in there.
There you go.
What are they talking about? What are you talking about? The Watchers came down and they mated with humans and they created a race that was a giant race that destroyed everything and consumed everything. That sounds like us. Doesn't that sound like us? If you're some flimsy, tiny alien thing with no musculature and a large head, and you make giants, you make football players.
I mean, you're right. What is he saying here? You're hilarious, Sketchy. I kept that on the screen for quite some time. It's what we're really getting at here, right? With Rogan is that he's starting to see that there are patterns and stories, and he's hitting his Christian mythos path. And the Book of Enoch is a great awakener, if we understand that through the Sumerian texts of Enlil and Enki, and how they created these, humans doing these same things, and you get the Watchers create with the fallen angels. We start to really put a huge picture together. And that is these beings who weren't quite gods and were quite human, but something in between, right? These Watchers. They stepped out of their place, crossed a boundary, and brought knowledge they weren't meant to bring. In the myth, they're called fallen, or the fallen angels, but not in the moral sense we usually imagine. Fallen like a star that lands in the wrong world. Fallen like intelligence that arrives in a place that can't hold it.
Like marauding Vikings, that are just showing up in boats and hacking everybody to pieces. That's how you would describe them.
Yep.
You would describe them giants, destroyed everything.
Yes.
It's all very weird.
And these are the giants that happened before the great flood of Noah. That they were killing. They supposedly God didn't like that all these the Watchers were around, and so he's like, all right, we're gonna wipe all these little beings out. Let's do this. The big beings, actually.
Stuff, man.
And Enoch
Really
himself
weird
goes through this amazing personal transformation where he goes up to heaven, he walks with God, and then he turns into Metatron, this angel. And a lot of people think that's part of kind of a celestial ascent tradition. So you have celestial ascent traditions and various traditions, and the wheels of Ezekiel, or some people think in the Book of Acts Jesus does this, or Paul has the thorn in the flesh where he sees maybe there's something around ascending up into this state and coming back down, and there's a translation function where it's hard.
Oh, right. And is that just a coincidence that this is going to be the last video we played right there? That as we're talking about, you get Enoch ascending, right? The Nephilim, Raphaim, Anakim, right? So you get these beings that are trying to ascend into a higher state, Enoch being one of them, Ezekiel unto Enoch. These ascent traditions that we're talking about, that he just talked about, that Enoch went through, that many great sages and mystics through the Bible and all the great sacred texts went through, is exactly the theurgical traditions that I'm talking about. These ones are ascent traditions, like the chariot of the Merkava tradition of the Hebrews, right? That's what they're talking about. Enoch with his Merkava around him. The chariot as he ascended unto heaven, and Enoch ascending into heaven went through his thrice great moment and became Metatron. Metatron and Sandalphon, two of the angels, these archangels, are the only ones that in Tron instead of El. El are natural angels. These two are humans that ascended into godhood, into angels. Not quite God, but gods nonetheless, to our human perspective. And this is what I'm talking about. And, we don't got to dress it up any more than that. Yes, I talk about comic books and anime and movies and film and literature where there are these crazy characters either go through a great dark night of the soul, they learn these supernatural powers, and they come back and they bring it, their hero's journey, they bring it back to the people. You get Neo as he's learning Kung Fu, as he's connected to the system after he goes through his breakdown, as Morpheus tells him, welcome to the desert of the real. All these great mystics and sages went through these things, and we're not to do what the exoteric religions have talked about, where we're just going to wrap it into a bow and say it's only for them and you must now follow. It's not to be followed, it's to be initiated yourself as well. We must initiate ourselves into these traditions, or find a school yourself and go through the work. Do the practices in any way you can. Become your own Enoch as he transmutes himself into the great Metatron. These all have symbolic values. We can read them symbolically. We can understand them literally. But it's important to understand that there's that esoteric value. Yes, he may have done that, but it didn't matter. It's in the mythos. It's become an egregore, so it's something that you should follow yourself. Become your own Buddha. Understand that divinity within. So not only we shall ascend, but we must understand that we must not rid ourselves of the body or materiality. We must encompass it. And we must understand that materiality and the divinity, we are but a mediator. We are but the middle path. And that theurgy is that middle path in that Iamblican way of thinking. And so it's great. Joe Rogan's following along his path, understanding that meaning is really important. There's many people out there that are also understanding that because we're trying to understand what meaning means to us. What does meaning mean to us? Well, it's okay to imagine yourself as that child, as a teenager, as somebody who, 20-year-old, 30-year-old, no matter what age you are, to not fall for the snake oil. I agree. Not fall for your Brian Johnsons where you're going to take your mushrooms on a live stream and announce to them all that it was a fun experience, because it's not. The dark night of the soul you'll go through, it should be a harrowing experience. It should be an experience that gives you humility and gives you meaning in another way. It should strip you down. It should alchemize you so you can shed away that skin that doesn't belong anymore, and we can move forward lighter. We can alchemize ourselves into that great philosopher's stone. We can find that holy grail. And we can find that ancient tradition, that adeptship, that pattern that underlines all things. We are either being freed from it by ourselves, right? We're doing it ourselves. We're understanding the simulacra, and we can see the hyperreality around us, that we are within it, and we have the ability to walk away from it. Metatron, Rogan, ancient traditions. It's something is going on out in the world, and Magus and the media is here for you. I'm here for myself, and that's the only way I can do it for you, that we're doing it together. I read the stories and I watch the myths. I've studied and trained, and I continue to do it on a day-to-day basis. We all have life to live. And it's important that when we are taking the time away to watch the shows you like to watch and communicate in a way that is fun, well, that we can understand in a way that you can have true gnosis, that you can have direct experience of these things. And I think that's what's really important. Thus, where the term Gnosticism come from, old cults back in the day. But the term there's many Gnostics. It doesn't really matter, because there are many Gnostics, and most of them, like very early Neoplatonic thinkers, were trying to argue against the Gnostics, yet they were falling into the same trap, that the body is a trap, and the only way out of the body is to leave it behind and to ascend your way to the divine. That is one path, but I don't think it's the fullest path. The embodied path. Go read De Mysteries by Iamblichus. The embodied path is the path of bringing to ascending and descending, to be able to meet it in the middle, which is why then the Taoists had their understanding of the I Ching, their Tai Chi practices, and the Bagua. And the Chinese, right, with the Buddhism, with the Shaolin practices. So you get Shaolin Buddhism, and you get Taoist Wu Dang, or the Wu Tang, right? And with those traditions, you get the 5 elements, as well as you get the understanding of the Bagua, the 8 trigrams. You put them together, you get 13 postures. Those 13 postures expand out into many, many forms of the Tai Chi. You have heaven above, you have earth below, and you have man in the middle, saying the same things that we've been talking about tonight. It's really interesting. It's all really interesting. It's really interesting because it's the direct experience, which is what I think they're trying to hide from you. And you get that Brian Johnson eating fucking mushrooms on a live stream, and it's blasphemy because he's showing you a gag reel. It's a joke. It's not real. That's not how it works. Yes, you can take these things with your friends and you can laugh and have fun and you can let down your walls. And I'm saying that is really important too. The Dionysian ecstatic madness, the rave. But there's also Apollo, the great sun, who has the divine spheres of music. When you're ready to get away from the cave and outside into the world, right? It happens in the Matrix as well. They have in the Matrix too. They have the great rumble, as Morpheus talks about. The great rumbling being the great dance where everybody has that orgiastic experience, and you get Neo and Trinity in the back making that beautiful anima-animus divine marriage. You get that great copulation, which then leads them into the world because they're trying to do something. They're still going into the world, and they dress up in their crazy, beautiful looking black glasses and the badass superhero outfits, and they go into the world. That's Apollo moving into the world, understanding the harmony and rhythms and cycles. And they must go, they must explore, they must have direct experience of the things themselves and bring it to the rest of the world to awaken everybody. And what do they do after that? Well, that's the great question. You continue the great work because it never ends. And I think that's a good place to I have a few questions here, and I think this is a good one. Direct experience. You just deny the body. I do not deny the body because I only think you can have direct experience with a body. I think it's important. Otherwise, you would be a disembodied individual. You can't have experience without it. Experience only happens when a soul and materiality, or a body, become animate. You get that corporeality. You get the soul embodied. That's how you can have an experience. You can't have an experience without body. So you can have a direct experience. And what I mean by that straight up gnosis is by not having any other priest or anybody directing you into what the logos is trying to disclose to you. So I hope that is a better way of explaining it. Thank you for, it's great. Thank you. And so I think that's really important. So read Iamblichus de Mysteries, read Gregory Shaw's Theurgy and the Soul. Highly think that work is brilliant. Get your Plato in there, understand your allegory of the cave, watch The Matrix, come to Magus, because I'm going to continue to be breaking these things down over and over and over again, because tonight we walked through stories that have been going on, and there's many more stories, and we're just going to have to continue to do this. There's many pieces that lined up. We're going to weave our way through all these pieces, and we're going to continue to bring them up and make those symbols have presence. They kept rising out of the noise. Every time we pay attention like this, the pattern shows itself a little more. It's never too loud. A lot of times people deny it, and sometimes it is right in your face. It moves the way an undercurrent moves. It's really powerful. It's steady and it's patient until you're just ready. It knocks at the door. Like Link as he sleeps, the great sleep, the little fairy above him, ready to wake him up because it's time. Link, wake up. He says it really soft. She says, really soft, Link, wake up. It's that divine guardian just nudging you awake. New Zelda video essay coming out soon where we talk about it. Wake up, Link. Nights like this, I appreciate you all. It brings it focus. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. If I have any questions or any comments or anything else as we end the stream, I'd like to say, to be able to do this, tell your friends, like, subscribe, share, watch as we continue this journey together. I appreciate it. Thank you all for being here, bringing your own thoughts into the circle. These conversations are important. They work because we do it together. We follow the threads together and let the meaning unfold along the way. If anything from the week recap echoes even more, we're going to bring it up. I'm going to talk about it. Think about it. I'll think about it too. Sometimes the smallest little details from these little things, they carry the most insight. So let's keep track of those details together. And let's all do it together. Have a beautiful night. Thank you for watching Magus in the Media.